Yo, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's your boy, Shady Share, the one and only. And today, guys, we are back again. Today, guys, we'll be checking out a video titled, Why is Germany so pro-Israel? This is a very big topic in history, politics, and emotion, all packed in one. Today, we'll be checking out what this video gets right and what this video might be missing. So, guys, let's get right to it. But make sure you smash like, subscribe, and boom, let's get this one started. Okay, as usual, first of all, I subscribe by like.
At first glance, Germany seems to be one of the most pro-Israel countries in Europe.
That's true.
Not only is the current German government one of Israel's staunchest defenders, but German opposition parties on both the left and right have also expressed near unequivocal support for Israel.
Wow, that's a very serious stance. It seems Israel's security is a part of Germany's identity, and that's not a small claim at all. I think it might boil down to the guilt of the Holocaust. But let's carry on.
Interestingly though, while there's an important historical background to the German state's position, this doesn't match up to German public opinion, which is increasingly sympathetic towards Palestine. So in this video, we'll explain the history of German-Israeli relations, Germany's current position on Israel, and look at whether it's politically sustainable.
Okay, I'm beginning to think this video is going to be a bit of a tough watch, but guys, let's get it. I'm here for all the drama, all the history, and all the facts.
So let's start with some history. After World War II, the new Federal Republic of Germany was led by the Christian Democratic Union's Konrad Adenauer. Confronting the horrors of the Holocaust was a seemingly insurmountable task for the new German state, and the concept of Vergangenheitsbewältigung, or coming to terms with the past, dominated the second half of the century. In the early 1950s, reconciliation efforts between Germany and Israel began when Adenauer agreed a reparations deal with the newly founded Jewish state, led by David Ben-Gurion.
That is so right. That is so right. So after World War II, Germany sent billions of dollars to Israel to help them build in the form of reparations. And like I said, I believe that is strongly because of the guilt they felt because of their part in the Holocaust. Well, I would say their part, you know, because of Hitler.
At this point, Israel had drained its finances fighting the 1948 Palestine War, which permanently displaced around 750,000 Palestinians from the territory that would then become Israel. The war effectively bankrupted Israel, and in its first 3 years between 1948 and 1951, the country saw an influx of nearly 700,000 Holocaust survivors and Jews from neighboring Arab states.
Wow.
This created housing and
Massive.
unemployment crises, forcing Ben-Gurion to take austerity measures and ration food, clothing and furniture.
It's because they're a new state, still small, and then getting all the amount of people coming in for them to look after. Of course, they'll feel the pressure because imagine they were bankrupt already after fighting that 1948 war. All right, bankrupt, spent tons of money to ensure they defend themselves, defend their land, and then getting all the Holocaust survivors, 750,000, all coming in at once. So they must have felt that pressure.
To get the economy going, Ben-Gurion reluctantly began negotiations with Adenauer over reparations for victims of the Holocaust. And in 1952, the two leaders signed the Luxembourg Agreement. Germany pays around 1.44 billion euros annually into pension and care costs for victims of Nazi persecution.
1.44 billion every year. Wait, Germany still pays that up till now? That is crazy. That is a serious commitment. 1.44 billion. Okay.
With reparation payments since the Holocaust totaling some 82 billion euros. However, there's also an important historical difference between the positions of Adenauer's Conservative Party, the CDU, and the more left-wing SPD party of Germany's current Chancellor, Olaf Scholz. For the first 2 decades of the post-war period, Germany, governed by the CDU, sought close ties with Israel and established diplomatic relations in 1965. But when the SPD took over in 1969, Germany's approach to the Middle East shifted slightly. The SPD has traditionally stood up for both Israel's right to exist and the Palestinians' right to self-determination. In the 1970s, the SPD supported the role of the Palestine Liberation Organization in peace negotiations, despite the fact that PLO members had carried out violent attacks on foreign soil, including the murder of Israeli athletes at the 1972 Munich Olympics. In 1979, the former SPD Chancellor Willy Brandt even met with PLO leader Yasser Arafat, which led to widespread international recognition for the PLO. Since then, the SPD has advocated for a peaceful solution to the conflict in the Middle East, and today its foreign policy approach revolves around peace promotion. Successive German governments have criticized the expansion of Israeli settlements, and former SPD leader Sigmar Gabriel once described the situation in the occupied West Bank as an apartheid.
Okay, so this is where Israel building to apartheid started. from this Sigmar Gabriel, the former SPD leader. Haha, things are getting very complex now because a lot of young Germans, like the new generation Germans after World War II, don't feel that guilt. You understand? They don't feel the same guilt because they feel like they did nothing. So that changes how Israel is being seen in Germany. Well, I should think so.
Germany has also long been one of the largest donors to UN aid efforts in Palestine. But despite the SPD's long-standing aversion to hard power, the German government has taken a turn recently, and Germany exported 300 million euros of weapons and military equipment to Israel in 2023, which was 10 times more than in 2022.
Wow.
Germany's new rearmament doctrine even makes explicit reference to Israel, stating that Israel's security is in the German national interest.
Wow, that is a very massive, bold statement. Israel's security is in the German national interest. That is a massive thing to say.
In fact, while Germany's support for Israel hasn't been absolute, with the German Foreign Ministry recently describing Israel's plans to repopulate Gaza as totally unacceptable, the current German government has emerged as one of Israel's staunchest supporters since October the 7th.
Back you, bros.
Last year, Scholz described accusations that Israel was violating international law as, quote, absurd, despite the fact that tens of thousands of civilians had been killed. Germany's president, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, also drew criticism for suggesting that Germans of Arab and Muslim descent should actively distance themselves from Hamas. Germany has also drawn attention for its new anti-Semitism commissioners, who can cut state funding to non-governmental organizations if they deem them at risk of anti-Semitism. While this is obviously a good idea in principle, speakers including Bernie Sanders and Jeremy Corbyn have had public appearances in Germany cancelled on these grounds. Germany's regional governments and the opposition have taken similar positions. Saxony-Anhalt announced in December that to become a naturalized German citizen, applicants would have to sign a written declaration of Israel's right to exist.
Wow, it is that deep. Like the connection, the bond that Germany feels for Israel is that deep. Like is that tight and closely knitted. They've put them as also part of their nation in a way. Because for you to become a citizen there, you have to sign and agree that Israel has a right to exist. They've put it in their system, in their law, in their constitution. That's crazy. That shows how powerfully and strongly they feel about Israel.
And Berlin's culture department recently U-turned on a clause in its arts funding criteria, which effectively prohibited criticism of the Israeli state. The Christian Democratic Union, the main opposition party, has also taken a strong pro-Israel line, with its deputy chair describing the phrase Free Palestine as the battle cry of an international terror gang. Even the far-left Die Linke and the far-right Alternative für Deutschland have in the past agreed to near unequivocal support for Israel.
Far left, far right agreeing on one thing. The far left and far right always disagree. They're always at loggerheads. They're always, always having a scuffle, always having that, they bicker against each other, too much trouble, fighting. Disagreement is just massive, all right? But for the far left and the far right to agree on one thing, this is no joke.
So what explains this pro-Israel sentiment that apparently cuts across Germany's political divide? Well, there's obviously the collective memory of the Holocaust, which the German government believes gives Germany a historic obligation to fight anti-Semitism and protect Israel's statehood. Statistics suggest these anxieties are well-founded, as according to a government report, there was a 320% increase in anti-Semitic incidents between the 7th of October and November last year. For Scholz specifically though, one reason he's perhaps more pro-Israel than his SPD predecessors might be that he's pitched himself as the Merkel continuity candidate, and Merkel was one of Israel's most vocal supporters. During her long tenure in office, Merkel repeatedly invoked Germany's Staatsräson policy, which said that Israel's security was a part of Germany's own reason of state.
Wow. Wow. Very solid, bold claim. Very solid, bold claim. I won't be surprised if anybody says Zionists are behind this.
The term was also parroted by Scholz in the days after October the 7th. For the German right, on the other hand, their stance on Israel and anti-Semitism interacts with their wariness about immigration, especially from Muslim-majority countries. The CDU's leader, Friedrich Merz, made this explicit last year when he said that Germany couldn't accommodate more refugees from Gaza, claiming, "We have enough anti-Semitic young men in the country." Max Mordhorst, an MP from the ruling FDP party, also said, "The issue of migration and anti-Semitism will have to be high on our political priority list for decades." And he also seemed to advocate for different political rights for non-Germans. Interestingly though, this pro-Israel position doesn't actually reflect German public opinion. While Germans are generally more pro-Israel than other Europeans, pro-Israel sentiment has waned in the past few months.
Yeah, exactly, because the youth don't feel that same guilt that their ancestors, well, not ancestors, that their fathers felt, okay, because they felt like, we did nothing to you. The Holocaust wasn't our doing. We didn't kill you people. We didn't gas you guys up. Okay, it's not our fault. So leave us out of this. So I think that is one of the reasons why they don't feel inclined, to have that support for Israel.
Additionally, only a third of Germans think Germany has any kind of special historical responsibility for Israel. And an equal percentage, 41%, of Germans see Israel as friendly and aggressive. Finally, it's worth mentioning that Germany has Europe's largest Palestinian population, estimated to be around 100,000 people.
They have the largest Palestinian population in Germany. That is insane. Didn't the Palestinians know that Germans are very pro-Israel? Let's hear that again.
Finally, it's worth mentioning that Germany has Europe's largest Palestinian population, estimated to be around 100,000 people, and Muslim population, estimated at 5.5 million. This might partly explain why Germany's Israel stance has softened recently, with Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock calling for Israel to do more to let humanitarian assistance into Gaza. It will also be interesting to see whether Germany's unique relationship with Israel could allow it to influence Israeli policy going forward.
Wow, this video has been eye-opening. This video has been a proper eye-opener for me. I mean, Germany's support for Israel makes sense. Like, historically, it makes a lot of sense because of the guilt, like I said earlier, of the Holocaust. But one question I have in mind is, how long will that bond stay strong? Because with the new generations not feeling guilty at all about the Holocaust, that support might begin to shift. And with the rising immigration of people from countries that are anti-Israel, that might affect things and cause a shift from being pro-Israel to being either neutral or kind of against them. It's tough though. The global pressure is very real with the rising anti-Semitism that we see around the world, especially since October 7th, 2023. It's increased so much. It is worldwide. Everywhere you go, anti-Semitism is on the rise. Well, that's tough. That is really, really tough. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you learned like I did learn as well. And I'm going to catch you in the very next video. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section. Do you think Israel and Germany's bond will get stronger as the years go on? Or do you think it will be watered down with the recent happenings in modern history? All right then. Boom, I'm going to catch you in the next video. Take care and peace out.
Oh, I love you more than words can say. You are me. Oh, you are the light that shines in my way. You are me. Oh.